Hi everyone, it's Miss Amanda here to say I miss you, and of course I wish we could be making art together, especially today because I'm quite excited about this project. Today we're going to talk about representing heroes in art. Heroes have been the subject of famous art for a long time. In fact, for much of art history, historical figures and leaders and heroes were some of the only people depicted in art from many regions. We will also find that the definition of heroes changes quite a bit over time and across regions and cultures. For example, today, especially right now, during this coronavirus, we might find that our definition of heroes has changed a little bit from what it was a month ago or 2 months ago. And I think we'll definitely find that our current definition of heroes has changed quite a bit from what it was hundreds of years ago. So let's get ready to take a dive into art history and look at some examples of art that represents heroes from the past. Artwork celebrating heroes goes all the way back to ancient civilizations, like this very famous sculpture of the Roman Emperor Marcus Aurelius from the year 175. Wow, that is old. The artist who made this sculpture decided to make the emperor very big and strong to show his importance and heroic strength. They also did something else that would become really popular. Have you guessed it? The artist put him on a horse. There's actually a very fancy name for when this happens, because it does happen quite a lot, and that is equestrian. Artwork where someone is on a horse is called equestrian artwork. The reason that this artist and many artists for years to come do this is because it boosts the person up above everyone else who's looking at the sculpture and just makes them seem like a noble knight and a really powerful, important leader. Actually see this happen over and over again, like with this medieval sculpture of King Charlemagne, and even hundreds of years later with this painting of the French Emperor Napoleon Bonaparte. Look at how Napoleon has one hand in the air pointing forward, showing what a strong leader he is. And you can see that Marcus Aurelius, the first sculpture, is doing the same thing. And with the Napoleon one, the painting, the horse is even rearing up, which makes his heroism and his heroic strength look even more dramatic. We even see this equestrian theme, this horse theme, with George Washington, the first president of the United States, who is often seen as a hero in American history. This is not the only way to draw heroes, though. You don't have to have a horse, and it doesn't have to be a sculpture. Look at these paintings from 1500s India. They're from a book celebrating the life of the Mughal king Akbar. Let's look at the painting of Akbar next to the sculpture of Washington. What differences do you see between these two works of art and how they represent their heroes? So maybe you notice that instead of just drawing the hero by themselves, in the painting, the hero is in the middle, but there's lots of other people and characters involved in the painting. There's also a whole building, boats, there's a setting. And that is because the artist is choosing a different strategy. They're using storytelling. They are showing scenes from the life of the hero to prove their heroic deeds. Now, these have all been examples from a long time ago. Let's look at how artists represent heroes today. But y'all know that Kehinde Wiley is one of my favorite artists, and he makes portraits a lot like some of the equestrian portraits of heroes that we saw in the past, but he highlights a different hero. Does this painting look familiar to you at all? Yes, you may have noticed that it is very similar to the Napoleon Bonaparte painting. Remember that Emperor of France? And that's on purpose. Kehinde Wiley chose that painting when he made this. He takes paintings of leaders and heroes from the past and repaints them with people who have traditionally been ignored by history, specifically African Americans. You may have noticed that in the examples we looked at from earlier, art history tends to ignore some groups of people, but Kehinde Wiley makes African Americans the heroes of his paintings, like in these examples. I am so excited to introduce you to an artist that I just learned about. Shout out to Maestro Daniel for telling me about this artist. His name is Jorge Garza, and he makes portraits of different heroes from today's pop culture, like Batman and Wonder Woman. And he draws heroes in a style borrowed from Aztec art. Sometimes his heroes are fictional characters like Princess Leia and the Mandalorian. Sometimes they are famous singers and pop icons like Selena and Prince. But recently, Jorge Garza started drawing different kinds of heroes. Can you guess? That's right. Doctors, farm workers, delivery people. You may have heard these types of workers referred to as essential workers lately. They are people who continue to go to work during the pandemic so that we can all get what we need to survive, like groceries and medicine. Right now, during this time, our definition of hero has kind of changed, or at least developed a little bit. No longer are just emperors and presidents and kings and famous singers and superheroes the heroes. It's not just them anymore. Now the heroes are the grocery store workers, the nurses, the delivery people, the farmers and migrant workers who all keep going to work and risking their health so that we can be safe and have the things we need to survive. Maybe you have an essential worker in your life. I know I do. My mom is a pharmacy technician, so she keeps going to work so that she can help people get the medicine they need. These are the people who we are going to celebrate with our art projects today. Before we get started, let's take a look at some of Jorge Garza's artwork to get some ideas of how we can draw our heroes and what details we can add to show how they're helping everyone. I'm going to show you a few different pictures. When you see the picture, I'd like you to try to guess a few things. First, I want you to guess what kind of job the hero has. And then I'd like you to look closely at the details of the pictures and think about which details are clues that show you what that job is. See if you can find any details that are clues that this was made during the coronavirus and that this is about what's happening in the world right now. Take a few minutes with these pictures. Make sure you take in all those details. These are the types of details and symbols we might use in our own pictures of heroes. All right, so what's your guess? Probably you figured out that these are pictures of delivery people. We have a mailman over here, and I can tell for lots of reasons. He is wearing a uniform that I've seen on mailmen. We have the bag of mail. They're holding mail in his hand, and then we also have the mail truck that a lot of us can recognize. Over here, this appears to be more like a truck driver. Maybe he's delivering a bunch of supplies to grocery stores and stuff. I can tell mostly because of the truck. And then you might have noticed another detail that tells us that these were made during coronavirus. You probably guessed it. Those face masks. This isn't just any delivery person. These are delivery people who are out risking their health during this pandemic, and so they're wearing masks to stay safe. Let's take a look at this one. Taking all those details. What are they holding? What are they wearing? What's in the background? So you may have guessed that these are farm workers. I can tell because they're holding different types of food and crops in their hands. This person seems to have been picking some corn and vegetables, whereas this woman maybe has been picking strawberries or fruit. And I can see that there is a little map of the United States with a fork, and maybe they're saying something about how these people are taking care of the whole country by picking crops so that we can have our food. Okay, so I am seeing that these people have to do with making sure people get food. The woman over here seems to be some sort of cook. So maybe she works at a restaurant, maybe she is making food in a food bank. I can tell because she's wearing an apron, she has gloves on and tongs, which a lot of times people wear who are cooks. And then I see lots of delicious food up here and some food she's cooking. Over here, this man seems like he, or maybe it's a woman, whoever they are, it looks like they are maybe working in a grocery store. I can see the little scanner for groceries. We've got a grocery cart up here, and then they're holding a grocery bag. Both of these people are helping us get food. Again, we know that this is about them working through the coronavirus because they're wearing those masks. Last one. So you probably guessed it, these people are maybe doctors or nurses. They're working in the medical field. I can tell because of, again, their uniform. We've got a stethoscope over here to listen to hearts. Same with this person over here. And they're also wearing lots and lots of protective gear so that they're being extra sterile because, I don't know, maybe they're doing surgery. There's one other clue about when this is happening, and that is this coronavirus drawing here. That is a drawing of the actual virus. Good job. Jorge Garza is not the only person that is making artwork to celebrate and thank essential workers right now for being heroes during this pandemic. Tons of artists like Stat Phillips and Melanie Cervantes are doing the same thing. So we'll be joining them today too, making our own images to thank and appreciate and to show these essential workers for the heroes they are. Okay, so now that we've gotten some ideas from Jorge Garza, it's your turn to start making your own artwork. Your first step is going to be to choose an essential worker, or maybe a few, who you would like to honor with a poster or some type of artwork that highlights them and shows the amazing things they are doing right now to help everyone during this pandemic. I've created a list over here of just a few ideas of some different types of essential workers. This list does not include everybody, and I'm sure I left someone out. So if you have an idea that isn't on the list, that's fine, go for it. But hopefully this list can help you get started. So that's your first task. Choose the essential worker that you would like to honor with your poster. Your next step is to start planning and thinking about different ideas of how you can represent the hero that you chose. What I'd like you to do is make at least 4 thumbnail sketches with different ideas of how you could represent that hero. Thumbnail sketches are something that artists do to plan and organize their ideas. It's sort of like a brainstorming exercise. They are very small sketches, that's why they're called thumbnail sketches, and they're really quick and simple. The 4 ideas you draw can be all about the same essential worker, or it could be maybe 4 different types of workers that you're thinking about honoring, but I want 4 different ideas. And as you draw, think about some of the examples we looked at today from art history and from Jorge Garza, and what are the little symbols and details they added to make these people look like heroes.
I chose to do 4 thumbnails of 4 different essential workers. First, I did a grocery worker with lots of groceries flowing out to a crowd of people. Second, I did a nurse with a mask, and the silhouettes of her patients she's helping are on the mask, along with a heart. Third, I did a mail delivery person with a mailbox and a message of support spelled out on each piece of mail. Next, I did a pharmacist holding a bottle of medicine. Lots of bottles in the background spell out another message of support for the pharmacist. Kindergarten, first grade, and second graders, you do not have to do 4 thumbnails if that seems like a lot. You can just do 1 quick practice sketch. You can see in my example that I used lots of different objects to symbolize what each worker is doing to help, like groceries or mail or the medicine bottles. I got this idea from Jorge Garza because he included those little clues and reminders.
After you have made your thumbnail sketches, you're going to want to do some thinking and reflecting to choose which idea you're going to go with. So I have some questions over here that you can think about to help you make that decision. Once you have selected your idea, you have a plan for what you're going to do, it's time to dive in and start making your poster. I suggest that you start by drawing lightly with a pencil so that you can erase your mistakes, and remember, draw it light until you get it right.
I decided to go with my idea about the grocery store worker, so I'm beginning by sketching that person in the middle of my page. I am doing that very lightly to begin with because I might want to move that person later. And then you'll see that once I start to have my space planned out a little more, I'll start putting in more details. Like right now I'm drawing the different types of food and groceries that the person is carrying and spreading out to the world. Then I'm going to go back and do more details on their face. I always save this until I definitely know where my person is going to go, because if I have to move that head, I don't want to redraw all the details. Then I'm going to start to draw the people that are at the bottom of the page. They're sort of looking up at the grocery store worker like that person is really inspirational, like they're a hero. They're looking to that person to help them get what they need to survive and have food. I'm going to start writing a message of thanks at the top of the page. I'm using sort of fancy block letters because this is a poster, so I want it to look a little bit special, a little bit fancy, and I'm spelling out the message, thank them. That means thank the grocery workers.
After you've sketched out your whole image on your poster, it is time to start adding color. So you can use whatever materials you want or have available for this project. Think about combining multiple materials together instead of just doing colored pencil. Think about combining colored pencil and marker, and how can you use multiple mediums to really make your image pop. Remember, work slowly and carefully so that you have a wonderful craftsmanship to honor your hero.
I'm going to use regular Crayola markers and colored pencils for my poster. I'm starting with the Crayola markers, and I'm using a pretty dark color to outline or trace all of the pencil lines I did to draw my essential worker. I'm using sort of darker colors on these lines and shadows because that will create really nice value when we come back to these parts later. I'm also using this technique on her apron, her clothes, and I'll use it on the food items and really everything in my picture. I'm going to do that same technique. I'm outlining or tracing the pencil lines with a darkish or brightish color. You don't have to use the same exact materials as I do, but this is just one technique using simple markers. I am also thinking about texture during this step. I added little dots to show the texture of my broccoli, and later when I do the hair on the people at the bottom of the picture, I'll be using different kinds of lines, curly lines, wavy lines, and sometimes even dots to show different hair textures. Now that I'm adding color, you can really see all of the different objects and pieces of food and grocery items that I used to show what type of essential worker I am representing and appreciating with my picture. I also added some emphasis with those colors that are kind of pouring out from the grocery worker's arms as she helps feed everyone. You'll notice that I put face masks on all of the people in my picture, kind of like how Jorge Garza put face masks on the heroes in his picture. This is telling people about what's happening in the world, and it's also showing the bravery of the grocery store worker for continuing to work through a pandemic. Since I used washable water-based markers, I can actually add some water to my poster with a paintbrush, and it'll make that marker bleed a little bit so I can paint with it almost like watercolor paint. I want to keep a paper towel with me though to sort of blot my paper and dab away extra water because sometimes it bleeds a little too much. My last step for completing my poster is to add some colored pencil. I'm using colored pencil to blend some of my colors and shades just a little bit more. I'm also adding highlights with lighter colored pencils, and I'm using darker colors to sort of darken and firm up some of the lines that might have gotten washed away by my paintbrush. I'll also be filling in some of the white spaces with just a little bit more color, like some of the colors flowing out of the grocer's hands or background colors. I'm definitely going to add more yellow to those beams shining out from around the grocery worker, because these lines add emphasis to her as the focal point and hero of my poster.
All right, and once you've followed all of those steps, you should be done with your poster and have a wonderful work of art. I really can't wait to see what you've made and to see all the amazing essential worker heroes who you have honored. So in order for me to see those ideas, the best thing for you to do is upload them to your Artsonia portfolio. If you're able to do that, that's awesome. If you're not able to do that, that's okay. Maybe I'll see it when we come back to school together. If you need help accessing your Artsonia portfolio, make sure to send me an email or have your parents help you do that. All right, I'll see you guys next week for another art lesson video. Bye.